How's it going, everyone? My name's Sean, and for those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, I'm working to get my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And as I was playing through Persona 5 Royal the other day, there's one character who stood out to me a lot more this time than they did in the original Persona 5, and that was Futaba Sakura. I think that she's one of the most likable and unique characters in the game, and has a really tragic backstory, and I feel like a lot of people often talk about kind of her mental health prior to having her palace destroyed and her distorted cognitions taken by the Phantom Thieves. But I've noticed that not a lot of people are talking about how she's doing afterwards. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is what psychological hurdles does Futaba still have to overcome so that she can be well-adjusted and reintegrated into the world again after being kind of a shut-in for so long? So where I want to start is right after her palace is kind of destroyed, and that first week with the Phantom Thieves and Sojiro, because I think that this gives us a really good barometer to look at where her mental state actually is after the palace is destroyed, and how she is able to cope with and deal with all of these different kinds of social interactions. Because as you would expect, once these distorted cognitions are removed, you would imagine that there would be a considerable change in the individual in how they act in their day-to-day lives. And this is unsurprisingly what we see happen. When she does eventually walk all the way to LeBlanc as though nothing had ever happened, and just starts casually talking to Sojiro and Joker, their minds are blown because this is not what she was like just a day or two ago. And then, on top of that, we see further evidence that while when she's talking with the Phantom Thieves up in Joker's room, she's not overly anxious. She's not being incredibly forthcoming with speaking, and she's not having the sharpest affect. Her back is turned for a while, but she never seems overly anxious. And then as the week progresses, we see her quipping with Makoto and Yusuke as they're in her room, which she ultimately warms up to them once they start talking about things she's interested in. And she genuinely expresses that she enjoyed talking to An and Ryuji. And so this week is capped off by even her getting to go to the beach. And so prior to all this happening, I have very few doubts in my mind that she had some degree of a social phobia, which according to the DSM, which for those of you who aren't familiar, that's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Essentially, it's the counselor's diagnosis Bible. But according to the DSM, social phobia is characterized by the fear or the anxiety surrounding social interactions that one believes that they could be scrutinized, rejected, or judged by the people around them to the extent that it is having considerable and adverse effects on their day-to-day functioning. And so, while when Akechi comes, Futaba hides behind Joker, and she does this a number of times throughout the rest of the game, this isn't inhibiting her social interactions. Later in the game, we see her openly talking to Akechi, who, in essence, is still relatively a stranger to her. She is able to talk to customers without huge amounts of anxiety, and she's able to warm up to them pretty quickly and even say that she enjoyed the interactions. With that being said, though, while I don't think that she has any level of clinically significant social phobia, maybe some social anxiety, maybe just she's a naturally shy person, I do really need to talk about the first time we interact with her in Akihabara during her first social link. When we do eventually get there, we find Futaba panicking alone in the middle of the electronics store after she just kind of went to go get a video game. And so police officers kind of trying to talk her down as she's just absolutely beside herself, probably having a full-on panic attack in this situation. And up to this point, we really haven't seen her be put into this kind of situation. Every social interaction up to this point, she's had people that she's trusted around. So whether that be Joker, Sojiro, the Phantom Thieves, she's always had someone right there, and she's never really gone that far like when she went to the store. And so I think it makes sense. She just went to the beach. She's feeling confident. She feels like, okay, my distorted desires have been taken away. I'm doing good in all of these different contexts. I can go get a video game from Akihabara. And so she heads there, takes a train to get up there, and she's doing good. But once she gets into the store, she starts panicking. And so what I want to find out is, what is actually the root cause of this panic? Well, given the context of the scene, I would say that it's probably either the crowd in the store or the confined nature of the store itself. So I believe that she's starting to display some potentially agoraphobic symptoms. I'm not saying that she necessarily has agoraphobia. There's not enough information within the game to explicitly say, yes, she does have agoraphobia. But I do think that she's expressing some agoraphobic symptoms. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, what exactly is agoraphobia? Well, agoraphobia is the fear or the anxiety surrounding being in situations that could have escape be difficult or even impossible if one was to start having a panic attack. So it does lie within the individual's perceptions. And the 5 most common types of places in which these anxiety attacks or these agoraphobic situations could occur are wide open spaces like parking lots, public transportation, enclosed stores or movie theaters, large crowds or lines that you might have to be waiting in, or even just being outside of the home alone. Different people get triggered by different situations and things. So with all of this in mind, we can see that Futaba can do well when she's surrounded by people that she knows, she's familiar with, and that she can trust, because she has a means of escape when she has these individuals with her. But when she's alone in Akihabara getting this video game, she doesn't have that visible means of escape, and so she starts panicking and she starts breaking down, and that's when we show up. And when we show up, she's able to start decompressing a little bit. So with this in mind, we can see that while she does really, really well in situations in which she has a lot of people that she can trust around her, like the Phantom Thieves, like Sojiro, when she's alone and escape isn't a given, and maybe she doesn't have that direct line of sight or that direct pathway to escape that she would have with these people she trusts around her, this could be overwhelming, and she could perceive the situation to be a lot more dangerous and cause a lot more anxiety than the situation may, on paper, warrant. And so I would say that Futaba has agoraphobic tendencies, and I feel like these tendencies may be leading to why she is not quite going back to school yet. Because if she were to go back to school, she would be in a confined classroom, so there's that confined space aspect to it, and there may be crowds of people in the hallways. And she won't have, just due to the nature of her age, she won't have the Phantom Thieves with her throughout this whole process. She would have to go in, at least initially, alone, which could potentially lead to panic attacks and could lead to some sticky situations moving forward. And just so that we're all on the same page, the reason that I keep bringing up the Phantom Thieves being with her is because it is likely, and it's noted by the DSM-5, that individuals with agoraphobia or agoraphobic symptoms are able to cope with these situations much better when they are in the presence of a companion. And now you might be wondering, okay, she has companions, that helps calm her down, but how do we know that she's actually just having a panic attack and she isn't just upset in these situations? Because she does seem to bounce back relatively quickly. What I would say to that is she does bounce back relatively quickly, and honestly, I'm just going to chalk this up to not wanting to take a lot of times on the writer's part to display a full-on anxiety attack or a panic attack. But the way she describes it is that she said that it felt like her heart was literally going to pop when she found out she was alone, in that she was starting to have this anxiety onset when she was surrounded by these crowds and in this confined store. And that's a common somatic symptom, having that really elevated heart rate to the extent that it is going to pop, of individuals who may be having a panic attack. I think that this is lended further credence when, in the second time, we go to Akihabara, when she wants to start confronting her fears. She's doing well when she's with Joker, but then there's a huge sale and a huge crowd of people shuffles her away from Joker, and again, she's alone. She explicitly references how she thought it was all over for her. That could just be hyperbole. But she does again reference how it is the crowd itself that really sent her into a panic. And so these are kind of the two core examples that I think really lead me to suspecting that she has these agoraphobic symptoms. So it seems to me that even though throughout the majority of the game, she seems like she's doing really well at coping with her anxiety in all of these different situations, I would say that given the very low context that we have, and if my assumptions are correct, that she could potentially still have some agoraphobic symptoms, that this could cause her clinically significant distress in the future. And what even lends further credence to this potential diagnosis of agoraphobia, or these potential agoraphobic symptoms. And on top of all of this, I think it's really worth mentioning that a lot of individuals with agoraphobia, the onset of agoraphobia could be due to the loss or the death of a parent, and maybe even some abusive situations. And we know that Futaba has gone through both, with her mother being murdered and her being shipped from household to household in her family, and her uncle literally being abusive towards her, not letting her sleep in a bed and not allowing her to bathe. And so these could contribute to these potentially agoraphobic symptoms. And so while we see her in her day-to-day life doing really, really fantastically with the Phantom Thieves, showing very few anxiety symptoms, barring the occasional here or there, I think that it's worth mentioning that this could still cause her clinically significant distress in the future if gone unchecked. Because let's say that she wants to go to school. Let's say she wants to get a job. These occupational and social activities. Well, she may not be able to go into places with large crowds alone, and that could be very limiting to her moving forward. I mean, in essence, she checks out, at least again from this very cursory look, on a lot of the diagnostic criteria for agoraphobia. And so without talking to her, I can't 100% confirm that, and talking to her would be kind of difficult since she's a fictitious character. But from an outsider's perspective, kind of looking in, I think that there's potential there. And so what would be the potential courses of action if she does indeed have these agoraphobic symptoms? Well, I would say counseling. Counseling is such a good resource for her situation. And so that leads me really into the last thing I want to talk about, and it's how admirable all of her efforts to kind of overcome her anxieties have been throughout the game, and how I think that some of the methods, while I think that they're kind of simplistic in nature, I think that they are really, really good. So in the second social link, when we're kind of talking to Futaba, I believe it's in Joker's room, she talks about how she wants to start making a list of things that she wants to confront and fears she wants to confront and overcome eventually. And so her writing down these goals in that little journal, well, I think that they're a little bit too short term. I think that that's a fantastic way to start. And that's something that if she were to go see a counselor, they would be able to build off of that. So I would say that the counselor, if she were to see, they would start by setting a long-term goal. They would set a short-term goal as an interim, and they would set objectives for how to reach those short-term goals and how to eventually get to that long-term goal. And so I think that this would be great for Futaba since she's already kind of doing this. And it would be a way for her to actively start reaching for something, because we can see that she, in and of herself, is very goal-directed. We can see this by her wanting to avenge her mother. We can see this by her very much taking charge of her own life in her own self and trying to overcome these anxieties. And even when she reaches out to her friend that she hadn't talked to in so long, she sets a goal and she strives to it until she accomplishes it. And so I think that that would really lend itself well for her to overcome these agoraphobic tendencies. But those are just my thoughts regarding where I think Futaba is at after her palace is destroyed, and I would love to hear yours down in the comments section below. If you agree with me, disagree with me, I would love to have those conversations. But if you liked this video, make sure to like the video, maybe even subscribe so that you can get more content like this. This is a new kind of video that I'm doing, calling them character case studies. So if you want to see more character case studies, make sure to let me know that in the comment section down below as well. As always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, a fantastic rest of your week, and why not even a fantastic rest of your month. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next video. Later.